Financial Times. Its headline that Rachel Reeves signals a rise in business taxes as Keir Starmer courts global investors. That and plenty more after this.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, though, a reminder of our top stories this evening. The UK, France, Germany and Italy have released a joint statement saying Israeli attacks on UN peacekeepers are contrary to international humanitarian law. In that joint statement, the four nations said the attacks must stop at once. The government has welcomed more than £60 billion of investment in the British economy as part of the UK's International Investment Summit. It comes as Sir Keir Starmer tries to reset his administration after a first 100 days marked by scandal and infighting. And a Sky News investigation has found thousands of people with severe obesity are being denied access to effective treatment because the NHS rollout of the weight loss jab Wegovy is happening far more slowly than planned. Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome to both of you, with us until midnight. So to the front pages then, let's start with the Metro, leading with the first day of the Old Bailey trial of 3 people on the killing of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif, and the words of her father read out in court: "I beat Sarah up too much." The Express, too, quoting her father: "I legally punished her and she died." More graphic reporting in the Mail describing how Sarah was burned, tied up, bitten and had her spine broken before she died. As the Keir Starmer's summit to attract UK investment continues, the Financial Times says Chancellor Rachel Reeves has signalled a rise in business taxes in her budget later this month. The Eye says a rise in employers' national insurance contributions is the most likely measure as the Chancellor tries to plug a black hole in the UK finances. Pippa's paper, The Guardian, also saying employer national insurance is the option favoured by the Chancellor, while The Times leads with warnings from business leaders that such a move will cause collateral damage to the UK economy. The Telegraph reports that unemployed people are to be given weight loss drugs on the NHS as part of a government drive to get them back into work. The Mirror says Mrs Brown's Boys star Brendan O'Carroll is under investigation over an alleged racist joke. Harry's paper, The Sun, leads with claims at a tribunal by ex-Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy that some of his former teammates attended sex and booze parties with him. And The Star reveals that up to a third of us often sneak off to the garden shed to avoid speaking to anyone and stay there for up to 4 hours. I bet a third of us don't have a garden shed.
Quite nice though, wouldn't it?
Would be a lovely. I do love a shed.
Escape the children, escape work.
Escape everything. Phone down. Remind, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of those papers yourself while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Harry and to Pippa. Investment Summit triggered lots of speculation about the budget, it seems, does it not? Which the FT, Guardian, the Eye picking up on. Pippa, the FT, first of all then, business taxes in the firing line.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost inevitable that speculation will turn to what's going to be in the budget. It is, of course, just a couple of weeks' time. And there was some consternation in some quarters in government that the timing of this investment summit was this way round, that it was before the budget rather than after. And the argument that the Treasury pushed back with was that at the investment summit, they could be much more upbeat, much more sort of talking up Britain, talking about how it's a stable, much more stable political and economic situation than the one they inherited, and that it would be, you know, it's a prime opportunity for big businesses to invest. And lo and behold, we've seen 60 billion quid, 60 quid invested in the UK announced today, which governments do these summits every year. Last year, I think it was 30 billion, or almost 30 billion that was announced. But at budgets, it's all about how you effectively penalise, in this case, business. So it's about tax. And they wanted to have the narrative that everything was actually looking good, a bit of boosterism after a really sort of doom and gloom laden start to this Labour government. However, businesses have kind of been a bit like, this is a bit odd doing it this way around. Surely we should have, we'll get stability, knowing what happened to things like capital gain tax, with employers' national insurance, all these other areas of taxation. Have that first, and then we'll make decisions about whether we're able to invest. I guess the government will be looking at that, though, saying 60 billion quid, not too bad.
Get the money off business before they run. That's how I describe it. Rachel Reeves said today, unlocking private investment is at the heart of everything we do. Yet, capital gains tax in the firing line, employers' national insurance in the firing line, and workers' rights, which some say will be damaging to business. So there's a conflict here, isn't there?
Totally. I think the budget is going to be in sort of 2 parts. One, the pain of tax rises, but they're determined to say are not on working people. I think we're about to have a big old row about the manifesto commitments. They said no national insurance rises, no income tax rises, no VAT rises. Does that include employer contributions to national insurance?
What do you think?
Well, I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, I wrote this morning she's going to do it. She's going to raid employer national insurance. I think maybe also taxing pension contributions from employers putting an eye on that. That I think will raise about £9 to £10 billion a year. A very easy lever you can can pull, but there's going to be a big political row about it. At the same time, that what they want to talk about at the budget is going for growth, going for wealth creation, which they've pinned their entire strategy on. Got to get growth up to 2%, otherwise we're back to sort of the grim days of austerity and cuts. They want to offset the tax rises and the spending cuts that are coming down the line, that all sort of credible economists say are needed by this mythical dash for growth, and they need the private sector to do that. And they're saying, look, we're going to get the banks to agree with us. If we, as a government, inject money into the economy, the private sector will follow suit. It's a big gamble. There's no guarantee it'll work, but it seems at the moment to be the only lever they've got.
Certainly the biggest lever they've got, and it's been very interesting watching we talk in journalism about rolling the pitch on big announcements, and I think one of the criticisms of Downing Street in recent times is that they haven't rolled the pitch enough, with some often quite controversial decisions, winter fuel being an obvious one. And yet the Treasury seems to have been doing a pretty good job of it. Going back, 3 or 4 weeks, there was a letter, I think, in the Financial Times from a series of senior economists calling on the government to change the way it calculates one of its fiscal rules, the debt rule, so that you could borrow more to invest in infrastructure. And you put certain capital spending kind of into a different pot, freeing up money for major infrastructure investment. The idea being, as Harry says, that private money will follow public money. And then ever since then, we've had signals, hints, and indications from the Treasury themselves, from people around the Treasury, and from ministers. We're now at a point, even though we're a couple of weeks off the budget, and no one has stated it explicitly, that we're expecting the government to be able to leverage billions of pounds into often public sector, so national infrastructure like transport and energy, but also things like hospital buildings, school buildings, public services, which people use every single day and see crumbling around them. So there is an opportunity there, I think. A lot of it will be how the narrative is cast, and whether people feel that raising money through, for example, national insurance on employers isn't a manifesto breach. Just very quickly, Harry this morning was pointing out that the Conservatives were actually before the election were suggesting that this was not clear whether national insurance was on.
It could be a bit of a row.
But the point is, if you change employers' national insurance contributions, they don't pay up so fast, and if you tackle their pension contributions, they don't contribute so much to pensions, thereby impacting workers.
That's the argument. That's the nub of the argument we're going to have. Is a tax on jobs? Is it directly taking it from the pay packet of a worker, or if it's making it more expensive to employ someone? Are you going to, at a time when recruitment is already down, having been scared witless by this Chancellor and this Prime Minister in the first 6-7 weeks of their administration? Business confidence is down. You're going to now make it more expensive to employ people. Dangerous game to play. Whether they can pull that off, I suspect we'll end up with an almighty fudge where they do a lot of little bits of little things, a little bit on CGT, a little bit on national insurance. But the Treasury are basically saying, look, you've got to raise the money. You can break your manifesto commitments, or you can spook the bond markets. Choose.
OK, and just on capital gains tax, the suggestion from Sir Keir that reports are wide of the mark, which was that it would go up to 39%. So what do you think it will end up
39% would be a dramatic, that's 11% on it now. That would be a remarkable rise. If you put it up a little bit, people just don't sell things, and therefore they don't pay it. If you put it up too much, people start to flee. Then maybe there's a sweet spot, 33, 34%, where actually you can make money. The old Laffer curve comes back into it, that you manage to make money on it. But, I mean, it's still going to be controversial.
And people against seeing it equivalent to income tax suggest actually it ruins entrepreneurship, risk-taking. You may put money into something but not see the rewards of it in 10 years. Your profit might be taken away by inflation. So there are arguments why it should not be equivalent to income tax.
There are, and I don't think we're expecting equalisation. I think, as Harry says, there will be a sweet spot that they go for. But it's worth pointing out that 39% speculation that Starmer discounted today, so just wide of the mark, was actually about the upper range of Treasury modelling, which was actually over quite a broad. There's a broad range of options there, which actually is both, is serious and sensible response to the budget, is to model what the different outcomes might be.
The problem is though, that Starmer's got himself in a bit of a pickle here yet again, in the fact that their whole line is we don't comment on budget speculation. Pippa and our colleagues and me will be phoning up day in, day out, going, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? The blanket response is we don't comment on budget speculation. And lo and behold, the Prime Minister goes on TV and comments on budget speculation. So now we know it's not going to be 39, we can start to work our way down. 38, 37, 36. how the sausages are made. That's
Oh,
what we
what
like to
fun for
reveal
the next
here,
3 weeks. In the meantime, straight to the horse's mouth for the sun.
Yes.
By the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Indeed.
Right, what have we learned in this?
So they're going to move on from here's all the money yesterday, or today at the summit, yesterday in terms of tomorrow's paper. But Starmer's now laying out, right, what we're going to do with this money. And actually, it's quite a punchy piece for a Prime Minister to basically say, look, suck it up, NIMBYs. Yeah, we're going to need, the whole country's going to be a national effort. We've got all this investment coming. The last thing you want to do is spook that investment by bogging it all down in planning regulation, in local complaints. Everyone's got to play their part, and that might mean having a ginormous, battery farm, a data centre, or indeed more houses around the corner.
It's going to be YIMBYs all the way. That's a new catchphrase in number 10. Yes,
and
in my backyard. Yes, it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a thing.
We have been banging the drum for building for years, and it's going to be a fight. These seats, the Tory seats that blocked the last housing plans and all the other regulation and sort of deregulation are now basically Labour and Lib Dem seats.
The Sun's going to be campaigning for pylons across the village green.
We're campaigning for cheaper electricity.
Let's see what the Telegraph does with that one.
Well, yeah.
In the meantime, relating investment and getting people back to work is the story on weight loss drugs, Pippa, in the Daily Telegraph.
So we've heard a lot about Wegovy and other weight loss jabs, and people using them to just lose a few pounds here and there, but also the health benefits to them being prescribed on the NHS. They can seriously reduce the risk of diabetes and other obesity and aging, obesity-related ailments. And the latest use of them is that, or potential use, is that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has said that they could be deployed in order to get people back to work, because the numbers of people that currently, because of these weight-related health conditions, aren't working, they believe should be reduced. And it's not just that they're a significant burden on the NHS. It's also that the government believes it's also that they're holding back the economy.
Yeah, and Thomas Moore,
yes,
our correspondent's piece running all day today makes exactly that point for people who can't get operations because they can't lose the weight to get the operation, then they can't do exercise.
Shaping up to be possibly the most significant drug invented in the last 50 years. And
since aspirin or statins.
Exactly. The problem is there is a bit of at the moment there's a sort of backlog on it. The fact that so many people are using it privately, and as Wes Streeting, I think, make the point today, it's not about using it to look better on Instagram. This could actually, in the right way, be doing it. But the sort of the producers of these drugs, various brands of it, have a huge. People are basically hoarding the privately buying it, and it's making it much harder for the NHS actually to be able to purchase it. You can have that debate about whether that's the rights and wrongs of that, but we need to dramatically increase production of this drug if it really is going to have the major effect that politicians clearly can see it having.
And there's a real shift. I think it represents a real shift in sort of approach to health, which is a preventative one. We've heard it a lot from this government about trying to deal with some of the problems before they become too big. I think it's about 40% of the NHS budget is spent on preventable health conditions, a figure which is forecast, according to the Telegraph, to reach 60% by 2040. So you can understand why there's an imperative on them to try and tackle.
But it's not just reducing the obesity. It's also there's evidence that's showing it's stopping people drinking, stopping people smoking. The potential of this drug and tweaks to it for different addictions could be potentially massively game-changing in the next 10 years.
Fascinating. And yet, at the moment, it feels like yet another backlog NHS story, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Lots more still to come, including this in the Telegraph. Duchess's tears for the children of the war in Sudan. Back with that in just a moment. The Duchess of Edinburgh, we're talking about that.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours, and we're going to take it back.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. Now, freedom! There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes, torrential rain and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued with its ultimatum to the people of Ashkelon, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me tonight, the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome back to both of you. Picture story, Pippa, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. The Duchess of Edinburgh speaking 10 miles, the paper points out, from an active war zone, meeting women who had fled the conflict in Sudan and being, you know, really moved to tears about this.
Yeah, she's on the Chad-Sudan border, just miles away, as you say, from fighting, and she's obviously gone there. Increasingly, her focus of her work is on women victims of violence, and rape is a weapon. And she's gone to Sudan, which is a conflict which I don't think actually the media has had as much bandwidth to focus on. It's less, I suppose, geopolitically significant than what's going on in the Middle East or in Russia, Ukraine. And she's spoken to these women who have had some awful stories, really moving, very sad stories about what's happened to them in Sudan at the hands of what was the Janjaweed, remember the Arab militia that was responsible for the Darfur massacre. Really awful stuff. She was in tears, and I think we should all read it, but obviously prepare yourself, brace yourself for what she found there.
OK, yes, and it's difficult to cover, but certainly we got into the capital last week with our Africa correspondent, so it is well worth, as you say, persisting. In the meantime,
screeching handbrake turn.
Yeah, I'm
Taylor
sorry about
Swift.
that. So in The Sun, Taylor Swift, what is the latest? Is that what I asked you?
I was baffled when I actually couldn't quite believe what I was writing. You had the Chief of Staff of Number 10. Right. Probably the most powerful unelected job in this country.
Former Chief
of Staff Number 10. But still, the Chief of Staff of Number 10 at the time, arguing with a pop star's mother whether the British taxpayer, when there's already been declared no threat to this very famous pop star, arguing with her, taking time out of her day when they perhaps should have been preparing for the budget or, running the country, arguing with the pop star's mother about whether they should have taxpayer-funded motorbike outriders. And then, lo and behold, half the cabinet turned up at the gig that went ahead because Andrea Swift said that wouldn't go ahead if they didn't give her the motorbike hours. I think people can look at that and go, what is this government doing? What are their priorities? And how much is it to buy what they want? Taylor Swift's a billionaire.
She wants Ed Balls and Yvette Cooper.
No,
how many people went to said?
Well, on the first night alone, Keir Starmer's kids were there, Bridget Phillips was there, Wes Streeting was there. And I'm not saying there's a direct link between them, but you can understand why they were so keen for the concert to go ahead, and if they didn't want to upset, their own tribe. It is remarkable that so much time seems to have been wasted in government, including dragging the Attorney General out of bed and getting to write a legal opinion on this. And the cops are going, what are we doing here? We don't do this for anyone.
It's a book in that, isn't there? In the meantime, talking of books, in only 30 seconds, Kamala Harris and allegations that she plagiarised a book that she co-wrote. I think I'm right in saying, am I?
Yes, and it's a story that her mother used to recount about her as a child when she turned around and she'd say to her, Kamala, what's wrong, what do you want? And she'd wail back, freedom, which was
sounds made up,
something that Martin Luther King apparently, a story that he recounted of a child that he'd witnessed. The problem for her is that plagiarism is obviously an issue for senior US politicians. Don't forget that, that Joe Biden himself, in 1988 presidential campaign, was curtailed after he was plagiarising a Neil Kinnock speech.
Pippa, Harry, thank you.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle,